Hello, welcome back. My name is Charlie, and this video is going to be a little different from all of the other videos that I've done so far on the channel. I wanted to try my hand at like a reading vlog type of video. I like to watch this kind of content, and I'm doing another buddy read this month, and it just felt fitting. It felt like a good time to try to do this. I don't know how it's gonna go. I don't even know if I'm gonna end up using any of this footage, because if it doesn't feel like it's worthwhile, I'm just gonna can it. But I think it should be fun. Basically, I'm just gonna be reading a book this month. Again, it's a buddy read. The buddy read for the book The Failures by Benjamin Lyer, which I'll talk to you about in a second. And I'll just try to give my thoughts here and there. It's a 4-part book, so you'll get at least 4 interludes, sort of, where I'm telling you about the book and then maybe a little bit about what I'm doing. I don't know. It is going to be a pretty busy month in terms of just like life things and things that I'm going to get done. So I think there should be a lot to talk about over the course of this video, and a decent amount of B-roll that I can fit in between those interludes, because I think those are the fun parts of reading vlogs. I like those, at least, to watch the little breakdowns between hearing thoughts about a book. You know, there's little musical interludes and stuff. That's at least the kinds of reading vlog that I like to watch, and I think that would be fun to try to make. We'll see how it goes. Again, I don't know. Again, the book that I'm going to be reading this month is called The Failures by Benjamin Lyer. It looks like this. I've talked about this already on the channel several times. I have a whole video where I'm kind of announcing the buddy read, and I give pretty much my full thoughts on what this book is about and what I think it's going to be like to read this book. And so my quick version of that is that it sounds like this is a pretty complex fantasy novel. It's really cool though. Sci-fi fantasy, I think, is how I would frame it, based on what I know. You can see here on the cover, there's like this mountain on the top, and then on the bottom, it turns more into like gears and stuff. And that's because I believe that this world, or like the setting of this book, is inside of this mountain. It's called like the mountain, and the mountain is kind of their whole world. Like everybody lives in or on the mountain. I don't know if the rest of the world is habitable. We'll see. Maybe we'll find that out. But it sounds like it's kind of a mechanical world, or like a post-mechanical world. Like they used to have a lot of technology, and then at some point the sky cracked and the technology started to break down, because the sky is also part of this world, part of this machine that they live in. Again, obviously, I haven't read the books. I don't fully know how much of that is true, but I think it's true. And I think that the sky has cracked as the result of a giant punching it. So the world can't just be this mountain. There are large things at play here, but I think that the people of this world, at least the people that we follow, live on or around or inside of this mountain. I mentioned it's like a little bit complex, or at least that's what it sounds like to me. And I think that's just in that the author doesn't tell you much. He kind of assumes that you have a lot of knowledge, or at least that's like how it's you read it, and people just mention things and like, oh, well, that's when the sky broke, blah, 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 and then they don't explain it. You know, like in most books, they'll go into a whole lore dump. Doesn't sound like that happens a lot here, and you pick up the pieces along the way. It sounds like it's a little bit of a mystery, and the way that you read it, at least, it feels like a mystery. I don't think that the story itself is inherently a mystery, but I think the way that it unravels feels like it is a mystery. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of work to read it, but in a good way, like in a fun way, like a puzzly kind of way. And I think that makes it a really good candidate for a buddy read, because I know that I'll be reading it with at least one other person on the buddy read, but I think a few of you are going to dip in there here and there, which is exciting, and it should be good. If the conversation is happening, like I hope that it does, it should be fun to kind of piece everything together. I think at least that's going to make this an easier reading experience. Again, it might end up not being all that complicated, but that is my current understanding of it. I am really, really, really excited for this. I hope I like it. I don't know if I will, because I don't always like to think a lot while I read, honestly. You know, it's a bit of an escapism thing, right? Reading these fantasy books, but I don't know. I like to think in general. We'll see what happens. I am very excited, and yeah, I guess that's all I have to say to you right now in the intro. The next time you see me, I will have started the book. I'll see you then. I just took a break to go buy the paint and eat a sandwich, and with no exaggeration, that was the worst sandwich I've ever eaten. I filmed for like 3 days in slow motion by accident. And when you film in slow motion, there's no audio and the footage is slow. So if you've seen B-roll, I've at least gotten that to work, but the talking head type videos, can't use them. Completely useless. But let me catch you up. I'm like 6 chapters into the failures, and so far I'm really liking it. Each chapter we're going back and forth between, so far, these 3 POV groups, sort of. Like we're following the convox, the killers, and the monsters. So the convox are, we're introduced to them when we're following a character named West as he's walking down some dimly lit hallway, and he sees a fire, and he goes to the fire, and there's other people around the fire, and he talks to them, and he knows them, sort of, it seems like, and they all have these cool kind of code names. Like his name is West, and there's somebody else there whose name is Candle, or Candle, and things like that. So really cool, intriguing names. Like I want to know why they call him Candle. I want to know why he's West, but he seems to formally go by the name of Lord. What is that about? Really interesting, and it's all very, it's all like that. Like there's, they'll tell you, or Benjamin Lyer, the author, will tell me this is West, and he used to be called Lord, but that's it. Like there's no information as to why that's significant, or what Lord means, or why he used to be Lord, or anything like that. So that's interesting. This is Mr. Candlestick, and then Mr. Candlestick is like, Mr. Candle, but then Mr. Candle says, just call me Candle. There's no Mr. It's like, all right, cool, but that's all. He doesn't explain why he's Candle at all. But they know. The rest of the characters know. He's like this infamous person. It sounds like he's wronged at least 2 of the characters, and they hate him. Anyway, really interesting. And then we meet the killers in the next chapter, and the killers are. It's like this ragtag group of people, and a bunch of. It almost feels Suicide Squad-y. They're kind of. There's a leader, Sophie, and she is of some notoriety. She did big things when she was a kid, and now she's not a kid, but she's still famous, and she still has this like band of people around her, and it sounds like they're like the old guard, or they're the new, like the old group that she had with her. Most of them are not there anymore. Now it's this new group of killers, and that's what they call themselves, the killers. I don't know why. I don't know really what Sophie did, but you get little hints, little bits of information here and there, but not a ton. So interesting, really interesting. And then we met the monsters, and the first chapter of the monsters, I really wasn't feeling that. Like it's a duo. There's 2 people. What's their name? Jackie and Gunn, I think, are their names, and wasn't super into it. They were fine. I'm interested in their story, but I didn't love the characters. But they seem to be dropped into this world, or like they got into this world from somewhere else. So there's a little bit of portal fantasy now, right? They came from somewhere else. It seems almost like they came from here, like Earth. I'm not sure if that's true, but it feels like so far. And now they're in this other world, and they went there on purpose, but I don't really know how they got there or why they're here yet. So, interesting. The characters are kind of, they're just walking around a dead city and trying to figured out, and they have, they've when they entered this world, they were put into kind of like new bodies, and they're experimenting with that, and they're they're very strong, and there's all these things about them they're figuring out, but they're just bored is essentially their story right now. So I don't know what to make of that. But then we keep going, and I read the second chapter of all of these people, so probably around 6 chapters in, and it just keeps going. It keeps being like there's more information that I'm given, but then there's just as much, if not more, hints at things that I don't know yet. And it's not annoying. It's not distracting. It's very cool. It's all very interesting. So I'm going to keep going. I have been, for the last couple of days, I've been taping the walls in my office, my old office. You may notice that we are not in my old office. My old office is becoming a guest room, and we're moving, we had a guest room upstairs, we're putting it down here, and my office, I think, is gonna just stay here in this like larger office or like hallway space that we have outside of my old office. So anyway, that's what I'm doing today. I'm gonna finish taping it up, and then I'm gonna go buy some paint. I'm gonna come back here and start painting the room. While I do all of that, I will be listening to the audiobook. So I'm gonna get back into it. I'm very excited about it. Hi, Bubba. Thank you, Bagel. I don't know what I'm doing in this paint this room project, and I've been taping the room up for what feels like forever, and I'm over it, and I'm bad at it, and I don't know if I'm bad at it or if I'm just being a perfectionist about it, but either way, it's taking me forever. So I was buying the paint, and I saw this thing that exists, and it looks like you hold this and you just do that, and it just tapes the wall for you. So I'm gonna give that a shot. We'll see if it's a waste of money. Probably is. Quick update is that that was a total waste of money. Alright, so I finished the taping portion of the job. So the room is all taped up, all the beams and door and the window and everything like that. So now I just have to take off the outlet covers and the light cover, and I'm ready to paint. All right, so it's been a few days since I've been here and could film about the failures and my progress so far. But I made it to the end of part 1 a couple days ago, or a few days ago at this point, and it's continued to be really good. I'm having a really good time. The way that part 1 ended, it made me feel like I have clarity on how these storylines are going to come together, how everything's going to connect, and where we're going to go from here. And it's really, really cool. I can't, it's really good. I'm having a really good time. I think too that I'm a little confused though, because now it's been a few days since then. I've read a decent chunk of part 2, and I noticed somewhere along the way, or I didn't notice, it was pointed out by somebody in the buddy read, that the convox, right? I've seen 3 different POV chapters, or like groups. I mean, the convox, the monsters, and the killers, and the convox are gone in terms of chapter titles going forward. They're no longer in here. So what? That's nuts. I don't really know what that means, because they were the final chapter of the first part, and I was fairly confident that they were going to be a huge part, and they've been my favorite POV group to follow so far. So yeah, I don't know what to make of that. But regardless, part 2 continues to be great. There's a new POV group, though, the Lost Boys, and I don't really care about them so much so far. It's 2 brothers that are mentioned sort of between part 1 and part 2. There was like a little bit of an interlude. It's just like a couple pages long, gives you a lot of story, like it explains a lot, and it introduced sort of these 2 characters, these brothers, and it mentions that they're going to be a big part of the story. But so far, they're kind of just bratty little kids, or one of them in particular. He's just like a grumpy guy, and his brother likes to learn. He doesn't like to learn, and so he just doesn't want to go to school and whatever. I'm not super into it. Their teacher seems interesting, though. He goes by Uncle, and I don't know. He seems like he's got something's up with him. He seems there's more to him. We'll see how they go. So right now I have the Lost Boys, the Killers, and the Monsters. Those are my POV groups right now, it seems, for this part. But regardless of not being crazy about the Lost Boys, their chapters are still entertaining enough. But I just whatever. I'm fine on them. The Killers are great. It's a very different tone when we're in the Killers chapters still, but I'm into them. I think that they're fun. Some of the characters, at least, are really cool. They have kind of like there's a lot of characters in them, which is generally fine. But since it's just a chapter at a time, like a chapter at a time, everything is a chapter at a time. We get like one chapter, and then there's a couple different chapters, different POV groups before we get back to them. Right? That's kind of how the flow of this book is, and so I feel like I'm not getting a ton of time with all of them, but there have been some cool reveals and things like that. So I'm into them enough, and there seems to be a lot of lore, a lot of background on them that I'm interested in. And then there's the Monsters, and the Monsters, similarly, they're like fine. I'm not crazy about them as characters, but again, their storyline is really cool. I said at some point in the buddy read that I felt like I was excited for different things for each of these POV groups. For the Monsters, I am excited to see what is to come. What are they going to turn into? What are we going to find out about them as their story goes forward? With the Killers, I'm very excited about what happened to them. There's a lot of backstory that I really want to learn more about, and we're getting some of that. But it's like I'm interested in their past. And then with the Convox, I had been really interested in right now, in what exactly they're doing right now. And so with that gone, the present is kind of like a little bit less exciting, I guess. But the Lost Boys, they fall into none of that kind of right now. I'm still excited to see what the Killers do. What the Monsters do. I'm still excited to learn more about what the Killers have done. And the Lost Boys, I'm not really excited about anything with them. I'm excited for them to get more exciting, I guess. But all of that sounded a little bit negative. I'm loving this, though. I'm having a really good time. I'm honestly, I'm going to go read it right now because I don't really have much to do today. So that's what I'm going to do. I kind of can't wait to get back into it. Chapters aren't short, but they're page turners. It's very addicting, I think. Good boy. So I've got a pretty sizable garden that I worked on this year. I built like 4x8 garden beds and planted a whole bunch of stuff. And we have no idea what we're doing, but we're just trying it out. So that's been cool. We've just been doing that all year, messing up a lot, but we've had a lot of successes. And I wanted to show you, I wish I filmed it now because I went out and I harvested, but I didn't expect to get as much as I did. We got a ton of potatoes. We got red, yellow, and purple. Some of them super tiny, but some of them were, that's pretty good sizes. That's pretty good. We got some cucumbers. We have a ton of cucumbers in the fridge. We've gotten so many of these. This corn looks really small, but it's this it's a blue corn that's like only for like popcorn, I think. Like I don't think you can just eat it. I think you somehow pop it. I don't know how that works, but we grew it. It was ready. I took it. And then we got some tomatoes. And so tonight for dinner, we're having potatoes, cucumber and tomato salad, and something else. I don't know. How cool. So fun. The whole dinner is from the garden pretty much. Wait, I almost forgot to show you our strawberry haul. Pretty impressive, right? All right, so I've finished painting that room that I was painting, and I now need to just clean it and then start moving things down into the room from upstairs. I think I explained the situation, but pretty much we're moving where my guest room is down to where my office is, and my office is now going to be in this like weird hallway area outside of that room. My head is shiny. Wow, I apologize. My hats are upstairs. We're just going to go with it. The hard part's done for this room. I think at least the hard part is the painting. I've never painted a room really by myself, so it was new. It was different, but it's done. The tape is all off. The paint is all dry, and I'm ready to go. That's what I'm doing directly after I filmed this. But I just wanted to give you a little check-in and let you know that I'm over halfway through the book now at this point. I'm in part 3, and it continues to be great. I'm having a hard time thinking of how to give you a ton of updates without spoiling things. So I do want to keep this spoiler free, but basically all I want to tell you is that it's fun. It is confusing, or it's not confusing. It's really well done the way that this is unfolding. It's not confusing, but I don't understand anything, if that makes sense. Like there's a lot of question marks, but it doesn't bother me. I'm used to not understanding fully what's happening in general. That's just the way that I kind of exist in my life. I understand what I need to, and from there I assume the rest will come to me as it comes to me, and I'm okay with that. I trust the author will take us where we need to be by the end of this book, and I don't think all my questions are going to be answered by any means. I think that's kind of the design of this book, is that it's setting up a lot, because it is book 1 in a series. So you can't answer all the questions in book 1 of a series, and it's planned to be multiple books. I don't know how many, but multiple books. And I already feel like unless this really goes downhill from here, which I don't expect it to, I feel like this is going to be a series that I'm going to be excited to pick up book 2. Maybe as the series continues, we'll do buddy reads for each entry into it. We'll see, but yeah, it's great. The characters, interestingly, none of them are like a favorite, if that makes any sense. Like I like all the characters, most of the characters, but none of them are really wowing me. But the storylines are like I'm generally very character focused, and so I need strong characters and strong character growth and all that stuff. Characterization is important to me, but again, I like all of these. I'm not obsessed with any one of them, but it doesn't really matter because I'm so interested in the rest. All of the world building it's just such a trickle of information that we're getting, but it's all just super engaging and interesting, and there's a bit of a puzzle to it. I don't think I guess it's by design, but this isn't like a mystery, it's not, we're not solving a mystery or anything like that, but it feels almost like we are, which is what I thought it would happen when I was doing my preview of this book, my announcement of the buddy read and all that. It feels like I'm trying to figure things out, and I'm trying to figure things out. I'm trying to connect the dots and put the puzzle pieces where they need to go, and it's just, that's cool. I don't find myself doing that often, even when I'm reading like a murder mystery book, right? I don't
try to solve it at any point. But in this, I am trying to figure out like who is this guy, because there's like a lot of code names kind of thing. So it's like a Candle. Who is Candle? And then you try to piece that together before Benjamin Liar gets to it. Like before he reveals it to you, you want to figure it out, which is a new thing for me, kind of. I don't generally do that. I've got my own theories that I'm working out in my brain, and other people in the buddy read are sharing theories that they're thinking of, and who they think this is, or how this ties together, or how they're getting around. Even somebody suggested something just the other day or yesterday in the comment on one chapter that I read a while ago. This person got like a late start to the book, but they're powering through it. They've already caught up and maybe surpassed me in like the week that they've been reading it. So that's cool. But they just said something on a chapter that I read a while ago that like changed how I think about a lot of this. If they're right about this theory, it's going to be it's very interesting. And again, I'm not going to tell you what their theory was, because even though it is just a theory, if it comes true, I don't want it to be like retroactively a spoiler, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to tell you what they said, but it was really cool. The buddy read for this has been great. I've really gotten a lot out of the engagement. It's me and 4 other people all reading this book at the same time, and giving our thoughts on, some of us every chapter, some just, dive in here and there and give some thoughts. But it's been really great. I'm really, I love this. I love buddy reads. I love reading books together. And this group has been really engaging. And so thank you to everybody who is participating. It's making this very fun. And again, I think this was a really good book for a buddy read, just kind of because of the nature of like the mysterious nature of this book. So that's pretty much it for my thoughts on the book so far. Right now, the framing of this shot is kind of terrible, and my head is very shiny here, but we're rolling with it. I just sat down to do this. So I'm gonna get out of here now and get to cleaning up this room and start hopefully moving things down into it. I'm waiting for a new rug to come for my living room, but I think before that, I want to move the rug from the living room down into here. So hopefully I can get that out of the way today. I don't know if I'm going to film any of this, because I don't think it'll be very interesting to just watch me move stuff, but we'll see what happens. If I do, you'll see some B-roll about that in a second. I'll see you soon. Built a dresser or an armoire. This thing, a wardrobe. That thing. You see it. You may have seen B-roll if any of that came out halfway usable. While I was doing that, I was listening to the end of part 4 of The Failures, and it's really good. I think I've said before that I wasn't sure we were going to get much of like a satisfying conclusion to a lot of these storylines, a lot of these things happening. That's how I felt at the end of part 3, at least. And then while I was reading part 4, but then at the end of part 4, I kind of feel like we're close. Like we're close. We're close to a lot of things. We're not close. We're not done with anything. I still don't know anything, but I feel like I see the light. I feel like I believe that Benjamin Liar is going to get us there. At least a substantial amount of the way, a satisfying amount of the way towards the conclusion of this story. We'll see how wrong I am at the end, but
I feel confident. I am also just generally having a great time. Not only in the book, I think I've said this before, but this buddy read has been really fun. I think it's a really good book for a buddy read. If you're gonna pick up this book, which I at this point definitely recommend that you do, and I'll talk more about that at the end, unless it really tanks and disappoints me, which I'd be shocked. But if you are going to read this book, I highly recommend reading it with at least one other person. And if you can't do that, then message me while you read it, because I would love to talk about this book more, and I would love to just hear people's thoughts as they're reading it, because it does a lot to your brain. It makes you think. I think I don't typically do that. Okay, well, I don't typically think. What I mean is I don't typically overthink when I'm reading. Not overthink, but I don't let myself try to get ahead of the author. Does that make sense? Not that I'm not thinking. I'm thinking. I'm getting thoughts into my brain. I'm getting knowledge into my brain, but I'm not trying to win. I'm not trying to like solve mysteries before the author wants me to have that mystery solved. I'm not trying to figure out how this story is going to end until the author ends the story, right? That's how I read. I just let the author do it, and I trust them to do it. But for this one, I'm having a hard time not doing that, not theorizing, not trying to piece together the parts of this puzzle, which is really interesting. It's a new thing for me. Not fully new, right? There are some books where you do that, but I don't know how. I'm talking in circles here. It's really good. It's really making my brain want to do the work, I guess, is the thing. You know, I'm not thinking about the book. I'm just thinking about the book. It's just he's pulling it out of me, Benjamin Lyer. He's knocking it out of the park so far. Not a 5-star read, right? I don't think that the end of this story could bump me up to a full 5 stars. It's definitely like a debut novel. At least I think it's a debut novel. It's written in a way that suggests, at least to me, that it's a debut novel. I think that's true. I don't really know how to explain that further, but there are just some things where I'm like, okay, a little more polish and this would have been cleaner. A little more, like a little more character development here, a little less here. This scene didn't need to happen. This, things like that. But it's not distracting. It's not at all. I'm having a really good time. So I don't want to say anything else right now, because I am at the end of part 4. Or sorry, I think I said part 4. I'm at the end of part 3. I'm at the start of part 4. So I'm gonna get back to it, and I'll check in again later, maybe with more substantial thoughts. But it's, somebody pointed out in the buddy read actually that it's a hard book to talk about this far in. Like even in the buddy read, people are asking questions, and people that have finished the book, or at least are further than the people asking the questions, are like, I really can't respond to this question in any way, because whatever I say will spoil something. There are so many storylines, and the way that the timeline is woven, I don't know how the timeline is woven. I don't know which storyline comes when. I don't think it's all concurrent. There's definitely, I guess I can't say definitely, but it feels at least that something happens first, and you have to figure out the order. So I mean, it's pretty clear. It's interesting. It's wild. I'm gonna get back to it. I want to dive back in. So I'll catch you later. Okay, so I have officially completed The Failures by Benjamin Lyer. That brings this buddy read to a close, that brings this video to a close. I finished it technically a couple days ago, but I took a couple days to mull over my thoughts, and I think actually that I could have just filmed this right away, because my thoughts kind of are unchanged right now. I liked it. It was really good. I landed at a 4 stars for this book. Not a 5. That's fine. Not everything has to be a 5, but it was really good. I think the experience of reading this book was heavily enhanced by this buddy read. At least I think that that's the case. Obviously, I've only read it with this buddy read, so I don't have anything to compare that to. But it was a lot of fun going through this chapter by chapter, leaving thoughts. I think I left thoughts on almost every chapter, as did everybody in the buddy read. There ended up being like 5 of us total, and just going through chapter by chapter and talking to people about all of our theories and our thoughts and our guesses at what is happening and all that stuff. It just really helped me to be fully engrossed in this story, because it's, I think I've mentioned this multiple times at this point, but it's not an easy story. Like it's not just given to you, in the text. You do have to do some work, or I guess you don't have to do some work, but Benjamin Lyer, the author, makes you do that work. He makes you want to do that work. I think I said in the last clip that I don't typically theorize when I read. I don't do anything like that even. But I just did naturally when I read this book. It's just so intriguing. There are so many things that are presented to you. You have no choice but to weigh the options and consider what these things all mean and how are these storylines going to be connected, because every chapter you're with a different POV, and there's multiple different POV groups. I think initially I thought we were going to follow like 3 POV groups throughout this book, but it was more than that. It was more, it was less. It was very interesting how it worked. There were a lot of characters, but I never felt overwhelmed by how many characters there were. I think that the characters had like enough of their own self. Like there was enough, at least the groups, maybe not each individual character. And that's one of my problems with the book, maybe, is that none of the characters were fully fleshed out, and some of the characters I do think were underdeveloped. And that's okay with like side characters. Sometimes you don't have to give me all of the information, but there were some fairly impactful characters or important characters that I think were underdeveloped, and I would like that sort of thing beefed up in book 2. But for a debut novel, this was great. And so going back to what I was saying, even though the characters weren't fully developed, I think the POV groups, which is I keep referring to them as that, like the groups that we're following in these chapters, in these storylines, I guess, they felt complete, even though their storylines didn't all end up being like tied up in a nice bow at the end. I had a feel for each group, and the chapters were I feel like I could read a page from this book, any page at random, and know whose group I was in. I know whose chapter I'm reading, if that makes sense. The killers felt very different from the monsters, and the monsters felt different from the Lost Boys, and the Lost Boys felt different from the Convox, and all of that stuff. It just, not just the characters felt different, but the tone of the chapters I thought was just vastly different, group to group, which was really cool. It was a very puzzly story, not really a mystery. I wouldn't class it as a mystery, but it was mysterious. There's a lot of information that we're given that's, I want to say like breadcrumbs, like we're given little breadcrumbs of information, but it's more than that. We're given like slices of bread, but I don't know what kind of bread. Does that make sense? I don't know what loaf this piece of bread belongs to. That doesn't make sense. You're given high level information, but you have to figure out the low level information. None of this is making sense, probably. Basically, I think Dani said it. One of the people reading this with me and the rest of us, one of the people in the buddy read is a better way of saying that. Dani be reading. They actually have their own YouTube channel. I they might talk about this book soon as well. But they said at some point in the buddy read that they were getting like capital word or capital letter fatigue, and I think that's a good way of putting it. There were a lot of words that were capitalized, so a lot of words that, you know, on the audiobook you don't necessarily catch that as often, but a lot of words that just sound like regular words were capitalized, so you know that it means something. Like that's the name of something. Like when they talk about silver is sometimes capitalized, and when it's capitalized, it's referring to something that's not just silver, it's silver, if that makes sense. And there's a lot of things like that where there's just a word and it's capitalized, and you're like, oh, okay, that is more significant than you might have guessed. But there's also just there's a lot of names. There's a lot of names of things, of people, of places, of objects, of just things. A lot of important things to this world that I don't know why they're important, and a lot of them I still don't know why they're important. And I finished the book and I paid attention. I read this fairly slowly. You know, the buddy read was set over the course of the month, and so I was pacing myself a little bit, but also you have to kind of slow down for this kind of book. I found myself taking a break after chapters, or some chapters I listened to like 2 or 3 times if I was doing the audiobook. If I was reading it physically, I felt like I was catching everything. That screen just turned off. But if I was on the audiobook, I don't know, maybe that's just me. If a book is like really thinky, sometimes I need to go back and listen to parts of it, you know, just hit the rewind button a few times and catch back up. But for this book, there were a few chapters that I re-listened to it 2 or 3 times, because not because I felt lost, but because I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss any clues. And sometimes I'm thinking of one in particular. I listened to one chapter 3 or 4 times, and then I went to the discussion, and I was like, oh, okay, I should have just listened to it once and come here, because what I was looking for, people were already talking about it in the discussion on Fable, and it's not something that I missed. It was, you know, it was just what Benjamin Lyer had intended. But so there were multiple times though when I did go back and I re-listened to a chapter, and I did pick up on different things. And it's just, I don't do that typically. I wouldn't find myself doing that with most books. And I don't know if I was doing that because I was in this buddy read, but I do feel like that at least partially like made me do that, or made me want to do that. I thought that was really great though. So I really liked this book. I really liked this buddy read. It was my buddy read, right? So it sounds like I'm tooting my own horn. Like this was a really great buddy read, but I that's not because of me. You know, the buddy read in general happened because one of you reached out and said you want to read a book with me, and that was cool. I said sure, and I chose this one, and then a few people joined, and it was because of them and the way that everybody contributed and joined in on the discussion. You know, it's a small group, so it's easy to do maybe. I don't know, but everybody did. Everybody participated, at least these 5. Maybe more of you joined in and weren't participating, but and that's fine too. But the 5 that were actively participating made this very fun. So thank you to everybody who joined in. I would highly recommend this book. It was a really good time. The world was rich and interesting and intriguing, and the characters were unique. I wasn't in love with any of them. I think I've mentioned that already. You know, I wanted more from a lot of them, but they were definitely interesting. There was a lot to like about these characters. There was a lot that I wanted to know more about these characters. And I think that kind of, that's a pro, right? Like that's a good thing, but it also is kind of my main con with this story. And I said this in the discussion. I mentioned this also in my monthly wrap up that you would have seen already at this point, because this is going to go out. This video is going to go out in September, most likely. But I mentioned that this is a book 1, right? This is a book 1 of a planned trilogy. At least as far as I know, this is planned to be a trilogy. There is no information yet on when book 2 is going to happen or anything beyond that. But
it is a book one. The intent is that this is to start a series. And I felt at the end, especially in the last few chapters, that it didn't feel necessarily like a book one to me. The way that it wrapped up didn't feel like the way a book one typically wraps up. It felt to me more like a prequel to a series, if that makes any sense. Like it builds the intrigue and it makes you want to continue reading more, but I didn't feel like anything really got resolved. There's a lot of open-ended questions, but there's not a lot of closed-ended questions. So don't let that deter you, but just let that maybe frame the way that you read it. Maybe approach it with that in mind. Approach it knowing that you're going to go into it knowing nothing and you're going to come out of it with a lot of questions. I understand a lot more now than I did at the beginning, but I have a lot of questions. I think this is a book best experienced with somebody. So if you are going to pick this up, which again, I highly recommend you do, maybe get your friend a copy. Maybe talk somebody else into reading it with you. And if you can't find somebody to do that, maybe jump into a buddy read online, or maybe just message me and I'll talk to you about the book while you read it. Because I think that enhanced my experience with it so much. I also had a lot of fun filming this vlog throughout the month. I will see how it all comes together in the editing bay. If I can make all my clips into something cohesive and fun, we'll see. I don't know that I have very interesting B-roll to slot in between. I don't know if I did enough slice of life content in my monologues, but I'm just giving this a shot. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. But I thank you so much for watching. If you've made it all the way through to this point, I really appreciate that. Let me know how I did. Give me any feedback on this vlog style video. Did I do too much B-roll? Not enough B-roll? Is my B-roll boring? I don't know. I'm overthinking it probably. But anyway, I had fun. I hope you did too. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.